deal with airplane peanuts?
From Donald Trump making the podcast rounds.
Trump has gotten to that level where he's doing every podcast where it's like, all right, we get it, man. It's kind of like when a guy's doing a special and he's been on every podcast and you're like, I'm skipping it. I heard this story. Yeah. I heard this on YMH.
To Kamala Harris going on Saturday Night Live.
I don't really laugh like that, do I? A little bit.
The comedy world got more involved with the election in 2024 than ever before, and this video lays out the entire timeline of exactly how comedians affected the presidential race and what this might mean moving forward. Starting back in August, when Joe Rogan first got dragged into things by MSNBC after it was rumored that he was suing the news network for $30 million.
This is what MSNBC did. They took a clip of me talking about Tulsi Gabbard and they edited it up and made it look like I was saying great things about Kamala Harris. Took it completely out of context where I was talking about, first of all, I was talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and then I was talking about that the media behind Kamala Harris, all this surge and all these people just deciding that she's good, she could win. And they put the two of those together and made it seem like I was praising Kamala Harris and saying a bunch of things that aren't even true about her. Like I was talking about Tulsi Gabbard being a congresswoman for 8 years and about how she served overseas, 2 deployments in medical units dealing with people who were blown up from the war. Like that's not something Kamala Harris did. It's something Tulsi Gabbard did.
It turns out that lawsuit was just a rumor and Joe never ended up suing. But just 2 days after that story broke, Joe Rogan's name was back in the news on August 9th after Donald Trump responded to positive comments made by Rogan about RFK Jr. with this post on Truth Social.
He got mad at me because I said that RFK Jr. was only a guy that makes sense. But I was essentially saying it the same way I'm saying it here. It's like what RFK Jr. is, he talks about facts and talks about reality and he talks about issues and he talks about like studies and what we know about things. He's just brilliant with his recall and he doesn't attack people, and I think we could all use more of that. And I think that personal attack stuff is what bothers people. And so what did he do? He just attacked me. But he attacked me in the craziest way. He said, I wonder how loud Joe Rogan's gonna get booed at the next time he goes to the UFC. I'm like, hey bro, like out of all the places.
That's kind of your home court right there.
All the places where you think I'm gonna get booed. Come on, man.
What a guy, what a great guy, what an amazing American this man is, Joe Rogan. What a true patriot, great man. I would never say anything negative about this man. What a guy. I know you were butthurt because I didn't endorse you. I do want to endorse someone tonight. One of the greatest people that's ever lived. Ladies and gentlemen, Joey Diaz.
Oh my God! After that story, things were relatively calm in the comedy world for almost 2 weeks, until Donald Trump made his first major podcast appearance going on this past weekend with Theo Von on August 20th.
I gotta know, when he walks in, right? I mean, do you have things planned?
Yeah, I had some ideas, but I think I was super nervous. I had a long week. You ever have like a date you're excited for, but you've had a craziest, longest week, and it finally Friday night comes or something, you're like,
yeah.
And I knew I had a limited amount of time.
What was the time?
Probably 52 minutes we had.
52 minutes?
Yeah.
That's a long time, though.
Yeah, but I know it can go fast, and he gets on some tangents and he'll
right,
go.
he goes in and out, yeah.
So I was like, you have to kind of curtail him a little bit, you know?
With the clips I've seen, though, I think that you were good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. You were good.
I tried my best, you know? I thought it was interesting. I thought he was nice. There's a lot of Asians for Trump out there. Do you know that?
Even with the Theo Von episode gaining 14 million views, it would still be another 3 weeks until Donald Trump appeared on another podcast. But in between that time, there was another major decision made by a comedian that would end up affecting the election, when Shane Gillis turned down the offer from SNL to play Donald Trump for the entire 50th season.
And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, nobody thought he was coming to this festival this year. He tried to cancel literally days ago.
Explain why.
Can I say why?
Right thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Because he was offered to be Trump on the entire season of SNL, and he turned it down to be here, folks.
Yeah. I wouldn't miss Coke Magic. They asked. They said, "Are you serious? You're gonna say no?" I said, "Lauren, I gotta go to Coke Magic." Shane, what is Coke Magic? I said, "You're not gonna believe what it is." It's a retarded guy.
On October 9th, Donald Trump appeared on Flagrant for the longest interview with a presidential candidate thus far, clocking in at 1 hour and 28 minutes and bringing in 8 million views. This was also an interview that both the left and right used as material to build narratives around, somewhat proving the idea that even though the stakes feel high, candidates really have nothing to lose by having these long-form conversations, because in the end, each fan base will only hear the parts they want reinforced. And 8 days after Flagrant talked with Donald Trump, Jim Gaffigan served as the master of ceremonies at the Al Smith dinner, which was attended by Trump but not by Harris.
Of course, Joe Biden was our second Catholic president, right? After JFK. President Biden couldn't be here tonight. The DNC made sure of that. But this is a Catholic event. I'm Catholic. Any Catholics here? Yeah. They're yelling because it's hard to clap when you're holding a cocktail.
White dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me. Every one of those people is voting for me.
Those two jokes started going viral after the Al Smith dinner, and just 5 days later, on October 22nd, Theo Von sat down with JD Vance for a full 2-hour conversation that raked in 4.5 million views.
Do you like JD as a
I like him a lot. Yeah.
You're allowed to say that. As
No, I do. I like him a lot.
I think he's good.
I think he's a brilliant guy, and I think his ability to talk like a normal human being. You did my friend Theo Von's podcast,
Right.
and he just did it.
How did he do with
He
it?
did great. He just talks
Is that
like
why
a
you
normal
called me
human
to
being.
do this? Is that why you called me to do this?
No.
Holy cow.
I was.
He was a nice
Once
guy.
they shot you, I was like, he's got to come in here. It's all about timing.
At this point, every political appearance on comedy podcasts had been getting insane numbers in the multi-millions, and with each appearance coming with resounding feedback from viewers that it's refreshing to see politicians in these type of podcast settings where there's more time to flesh out complex ideas, and even time to discuss other things outside of politics to make them more of a relatable human being. But the biggest events were still all yet to come, as comedians have never been more relevant to the political world than during the 3-day stretch that started on October 25th, 2024, when Donald Trump appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience for a 3-hour conversation that will go down as one of the most significant podcast appearances of all time.
I got interviewed by actually a great guy. I didn't know him too well, but I got to know him because it was the longest interview I've ever done in my life. Joe Rogan, a good guy.
The very next day, on October 26th, JD Vance went on the Tim Dillon Show for an hour and a half, rolling with the jokes and showcasing a sense of humor in front of 2 million viewers. Politicians going on podcasts is crazy enough in the first place. If you think back to 2020, there was no shot anyone outside of Rogan would be landing a presidential candidate. But talking to a candidate on a podcast is nothing compared to what happened to Tony Hinchcliffe, who literally became the talking point surrounding the entire election for nearly a week after his appearance at the Madison Square Garden rally on October 27th.
I can't get Hinchcliffe off the brain, dude.
Bro.
That's all I think about. All day. It makes me laugh.
It's the funniest thing ever.
It's the funniest thing that's happened.
If Trump loses,
it's
the ultimate.
And it is Tony's fault. And because of that, World War III does take place. Tony Hinchcliffe is Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He is. People are going to look back and go, why did this happen?
Dude, I'm going to be holding my whole family and I'm going to see the blast radius before we go out in a hot flash. I'm going to go, an island of garbage?
You can see the blast radius and you're going to go, unbelievable. Just going to dust, dude.
Yeah, the argument's all mine about that. I'm going to be holding my kids and be like, actually, it was kind of bullshit. He actually kind of crushed it on you.
It actually was funny.
It's hard to do that
a little bit. Yeah, it was 11 a.m., dude. That was pretty tough. He's probably nervous and just went back to material. Who cares? Bro, I saw a Kamala Harris commercial with Tony Hinchcliffe in the beginning of it in like black and white.
Yeah, they
hit him with the black and white.
Colors,
Oh my God. Bro, it's so good.
Every single single person in this country, from celebrities to politicians to even my grandpa, was talking about Tony Hinchcliffe for the next 7 days, as conversation went from how could he say that to why was he there, to then Trump saying he didn't know him, and then people calling Trump a liar for saying that, and then Biden calling Trump voters garbage, and then people started running with that. And while all of that chaos is going on behind the scenes, Joe Rogan is still desperately trying to get Kamala Harris to come to Austin and do the podcast in studio, even after her team basically said the best they can do is 45 minutes and Joe has to go to them, which undoubtedly would have looked strange after Trump came in and did 3 hours next to young Jamie.
You're offering her the opportunity to do exactly what the other candidate did, right?
Well, she actually reached out when she found out that he was coming on. So their camp reached out to me. So I said, great, I would love to talk to her. But it was very difficult to tie it down. And they wanted to travel. And see, the thing is, like, you can't, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room. And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox. Like, people were waving him off. That's a distraction. People in the room, like, my whole goal with her and with him is just talk. Just have a conversation like a human being. You find out things about people. You get a sense of them, at least, a real sense. That was it. I don't give a what we talk about. I really don't. I just want to talk to you. Who the fuck are you?
Do you think they think that you're on his side and they're more wary of you?
I don't know. I mean, there's just because of my appearance, there's always been this assumption that I'm some right-wing MAGA guy. I was a Bernie supporter. You know, I am not. I'm a politically homeless person, for sure.
On October 31st, J.D. Vance made the trip to Austin, Texas for a 3-hour conversation in studio that was watched by 17 million people. And 2 days later, Kamala Harris finally dipped her toes into the comedy world with a nearly 3-minute appearance on Saturday Night Live during the cold opening on November 2nd. The last big domino to fall happened the night before the election on November 4th, when Joe Rogan uploaded the latest episode of JRE with Elon Musk to X and posted the following statement below. The great and powerful Elon Musk. If it wasn't for him, we'd be He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that is an endorsement of Trump. Enjoy the podcast. Even though most celebrity endorsements are thought of to be irrelevant and kind of insulting, the Rogan endorsement was a slightly bigger deal because in 2016, Joe went with Bernie, and in 2020, he endorsed Tulsi Gabbard. So publicly siding with a Republican was indeed a first for Joe.
And it just came over the wires that Joe Rogan just endorsed me. Is that good? Thank you, Joe.
Because of this late endorsement, there are people who claim that Joe Rogan somehow single-handedly won this election for Donald Trump by only having him on the podcast, conveniently ignoring the facts that Kamala Harris had every single chance to go on the Joe Rogan Experience and never did, even after literally being in Texas the day after Trump's appearance.
You could look at this and you say, oh, you're being a diva. But she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, anytime. I said, if she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock. I go, I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it at midnight. She's up. She wants to, drink a Red Bull.
Now looking back and seeing the influence that these podcasts had, it's safe to say that was a huge up from the Harris campaign. There are media outlets that want to claim comedians have a right-wing bias since only Trump and Vance went on the comedy podcasts, but make no mistake, Theo Von, Andrew Schultz, and Joe Rogan are all on record reaching out to Kamala Harris, who only made one podcast appearance that was targeted towards her own demographic, and seem to look down on the comedy world as just a bunch of dudes who they refer to as the bro vote.
Oh, these bro culture guys or something like that. Like, I'm sorry. Objectively, this isn't an opinion. What happens on this show is so much more intelligent and thoughtful and deep than anything that's going on at CNN. You can't tell me that you sitting down with Elon Musk for 3 hours and then compare that to like Wolf Blitzer with all his graphics behind him, talking for 30 seconds before he goes to a pharmaceutical commercial, and then coming back and having the dumbest left-winger yell at the dumbest right-winger. Really? And you guys are going to act like you're the grown-ups in the room? Like, it's too ridiculous. And that's right. So the entire young generation, they've all turned that off. That none of them are getting their news from CNN anymore.
We've actually been hearing a lot of talk about the Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan podcast. In fact, a little while ago, we were talking to two guys. One of them said he was on the fence until when Kamala did not go on the Joe Rogan podcast. That was what influenced his vote. He ended up voting for Trump, but he said that he was open to listening to Kamala on the podcast, and when she didn't, again, not necessarily all the issues, but the fact that he said she didn't seem like a real person because she couldn't talk for an extended period of time.
I want to thank some people real quick. I want to thank Theo Vaughn, Bussin' with the Boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan.
When it's all said and done, and without including other platforms, Donald Trump and JD Vance combined for 88.5 million views on YouTube across all podcasts before the election, and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz accounted for 11.3 million views on the SNL cold opening. Which leads me to my next point. The next election, every single candidate, even during the primaries, is gonna be hitting up the podcast scene, and that's gonna be super annoying. I think the novelty of the comedy and politics crossover has already worn off. At their core, the prototype of what you would think a comedian and a politician are complete opposites. So now that the election is over, hopefully these shows will go back to having just a good time. And to be honest, we don't even need the politicians to be making the full podcast rounds in 2028. Just have each candidate go on Are You Garbage, and we can all make a decision from there.
Trump coming on here and her refusing to. This is, I mean, dude, you kind of put Donald Trump in the White House.
Just
like, this is amazing.
Settle down. People are listening.
Everyone's thinking it.
Guest spots from last week. The Joe Rogan Experience had on Tim Dillon, Elon Musk, Trigonometry, JD Vance, and John Fetterman. Jim Norton and Ari Shaffir were on Kill Tony. Mateo Lane and Nick Smith were on Whiskey Ginger. Dr. Drew returned to Your Mom's House. Are You Garbage welcomed Liza Schlesinger. TJ Miller and Jordan Jensen dropped by the Legion of Skanks. Tom Papa was on Burtcast. Jeff R. Curry was on Chrissy Chaos and went on a date with Lauren Compton. Whitney Cummings was on We Might Be Drunk. Joe List was on Being Ian with Jordan. Toby McMullen was on You Be Trippin'. Lil Rel broke bread with Tom Papa. Tuesdays with Stories, Bad Friends, Tim Dillon, and Flagrant all did not have guests. And Two Bears One Cave was Tom and Russell Peters.
You also pick up on, the whole thing is you pick up on like the social aspects of that culture. Like you have you don't just do a voice.
No, you got it. Well, if you're also doing a voice, your body has to change.
Okay.
You can't just do an Indian voice and be straight like, hello everybody, how's it? But your whole body, hello everybody. And then if it doesn't do this, if it doesn't flow, then you're like, the fuck you doing?
Because this is what they do.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
That's why you never have to worry about India working on AI robots, because you know how hard it is to make a robot do this? It need to be on a gimbal.
Yeah.
Sadhguru was a guest on This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn. Francis Ellis took a trip to Stuff Island. Drew Montana was on The Tim Butterly Show. Johnny Pemberton was on The Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Billy was on Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. Ryan Long took a ride on the Harland Highway. Eric Griffin took his shoes off with Rick Glassman. Mike Racine joined the fun on The Adam Friedland Show. Marcus Monroe stopped by You Know What Dude. Brooks Wheelan sat on the couch with Soder. Robert Smeagol was on The Blocks Podcast. Reggie Watts made it weird with Pete Holmes. Gianmarco Cerezi was on The Honeydew. Jody Sweeten sat in The Way Back, and The Zach and Lewis Show featured Brendan Sagalow, Derek Drescher, and Mike Figs. As far as new stand-up comedy specials that are either out right now or coming out soon, Tom Papa Home Free is out on Netflix, Gary Owen Broken Family is out right now on YouTube, along with Brett Ernst Uncaged, Strider Wilson Making Memories, Tony Rock Rock the World, Bill Squire Pure BS, Adam Friedland 2 Nights in London, Are You Garbage and Friends with Ian Fidance, Giannis Pappas, and Dan Soder, and Robbie Bernstein live from the Denver Comedy Garage. We also had Chris Stefano release Speshy Weshy on YouTube after getting the rights back from Netflix. There's more than a few comedy specials in the works right now that will be coming out soon, starting off on November 8th with Adam Rowe, What's Wrong With Me, premiering on YouTube. On November 12th, Adrian Appalucci, The Dark Queen is coming out on Netflix, and Anthony Jeselnik's first special in 5 years, Bones and All, will be coming out on Netflix November 26th. And speaking of Netflix, Adam Ray will be making his Netflix debut with a Dr. Phil live show November 19th that will feature the real Dr. Phil. But other than that, with the all-time run of Joe Rogan episodes and all the other stuff we talked about in this video, the comedy news cycle has been insane lately, so there is a slight delay on the Best of October compilation, but it will be coming out soon, so if you don't want to miss it, consider turning on the post notifications right now. Alright, thanks for considering. Also, anyone who wants some free Joke World stickers, check the link in the description below, or just send us a message on Instagram. That is it. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next time.
At Joke World. That's it, at Joke World.
And the world is WRLD.
That's a great YouTube channel, Joke World. Check it out.